Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SorareData Office Hours show. As you guys noticed yesterday, I was the host. I'm going to be hosting again. Joining me today is Maxime. Maxime, how's it going?
Well, pretty good. Happy to do that. Yeah, well, I'm glad when Andrew is on vacation because we get to do this show together.
I know we get to improve things. He was upset with me. Apparently, my jokes are old and tired. Which I mean, I'm pretty sure that most of my jokes being old and tired is the actual joke in of itself. But it's probably nice. People get a little bit of a change of scenery without Laird here, so it's good that we can talk about some things that maybe you guys didn't talk about. I did watch last week. I watched his reaction when he found out that the prize pools were actually incorrect in the one region, and he was able to boast out his chest and say that he was right. So I was glad to witness that. I was glad to see his reaction to it. And yours was pretty good also. So yeah, so we're going to talk about some different things. There was obviously an announcement today in which they are redistributing the prize pools overall. So we will be able to talk about that. First of all, welcome to everyone in chat. I see a few people are here. Laird was actually not first today, so that's a positive. Solar Monkey showing me some love. I love you guys as well. So it's glad to be here. Glad to see you guys. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and then if there's anything you guys want to discuss as well, we can talk about. And Charlie Dunbar wants to know our thoughts on money clips. Maxime, what is your thoughts on money clips?
They should be banned. That's it.
There we go. A quick version on the money clips and thoughts. So, first thing we can talk about today is the redistribution of the prize pool. I don't know if they had an actual announcement with like a Medium post or anything, or if it was just within the Discord. So I'll just read it quickly and talk about the announcement. So Maxime, what is your original thoughts on it before I bring it up here and talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, very interesting update. Kind of coming out of nowhere, actually. Wasn't like, yeah, wasn't expecting that, to be honest. But I guess that's something I have been saying for the past few months now, and probably years. We need a division hierarchy, and they're kind of establishing a division hierarchy, well, a region hierarchy now with this. So pretty exciting, and I feel like we're going to slowly progress towards a world where Champion Europe and All Star are going to be the main divisions.
Yeah, it's definitely like you said, it wasn't really expected. I don't think they had alluded to this happening. Um, I don't think that there was any like sort of idea that it was happening. We did know that the long form contests were coming. We just didn't know exactly what came out. So I did not see this in a Medium post. So I'm just going to read stuff off the Discord and paraphrase some stuff. So starting with Game Week 397 on Friday, they are redistributing the ETH rewards across the Sorare competitions. As Maxime just said, they're changing the hierarchy and they're actually telling you now what are the like most important regions. I know there's probably going to be some discussion within that, which we'll talk about. So the ETH and cash podium rewards will be in this priority order: Global All Star at the top, Champion Europe, Under 23, Challenger Europe, Champion America, Champion Asia, and Second Division Europe. Which, to be fair, that's pretty much how it was done already, anyways. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think like U23 is kind of the weird region here because it's very difficult to evaluate U23 cards. I guess I would, yeah, I guess I prioritize U23 over Challenger Europe and sometimes Champion Europe. So I mean, yeah, apart from U23, I guess that was already what was going on.
Yeah. All right. Looking into more, that they are going to rebalance the ETH that's going to be distributed. Following this new rewards principle, 20% of the total ETH and cash amount distributed in Global All Star each game week will also now be relocated or reallocated to Champion Europe prize pool. So if we look at the current upcoming game weeks, this is the first week where we have everything back. I think most everything is back in this upcoming game week, where it wasn't that way up until now. Unfortunately, I don't really have a good way of going back and looking at the past from like 395 to see what it is. But if we look at this upcoming game week right now, Champion Europe is currently not there with the prize pool. It's still like non-existent for whatever reason. I'm assuming they're working on fixing it. But the current upcoming prize pool from an ETH and cash perspective is $8,595 in All-Star Rare Pro. So if we are to believe what was discussed based on that, that means that it was like around 10,200 or 10,000 like 500, and they have moved 20% now to Champion Europe. How much do you think they're going to go down the list in like Champion Europe? Because clearly, I think the intention here is to not just pay the podium. So, like for example, in Global All Star Rare Pro, they're paying through 30th place. So, what do you think? Because we don't have it up yet, so we don't know. What are they going to pay in Champion Europe Rare Pro? Like, are they going to pay 10 places, 20? What do you think?
Well, do they actually like say clearly that they intend to pay more than the podium? Because from what I read, I understood like they would relocate it to podium places and not other places. So that's something that wasn't really clear. Also, I thought like when I read that, I thought they were going to pay more places than the podium. But what they say is basically they reallocate 20% of the podium from All Star to Champion Europe. And so
Yes.
to me, it's going to go to podium places, and that's it. Which is kind of not great. I mean, if you do that, why not pay more places, right?
Yeah, see, the way I guess I'm interpreting it differently. The current way I'm interpreting it is that they are removing 20% of the cash from Global All Star and they're going to redistribute it to Champion Europe. So I guess the way I'm looking at it is like they're currently paying through 30 places in Global All Star Rare Pro. Like maybe they're going to pay 10 places in Champion Europe and use that 20% allocation there. So I guess yeah, you're right. There's very vague breakdown here, and it is interesting because I don't know exactly what they're going to do, and we don't know what they're going to do.
Because they say with this change, podium rewards will range from lowest second division Europe to highest All Star. And so, I mean, to me, that means that they're only talking about podiums, but it's unclear. I would give you that.
So Scosmo has just said that 20% of all cash from gas has gone to Champ. He said the gas is down from 40 and 100 to 30 and 80. I guess I can't confirm that because I didn't look at what it was. But so that would make sense. So yeah, so upcoming game week is $100 for 80th place in All Star Rare, whereas now it's now 80 and it was 100. So in that situation, I would think that they are going to give it to not just the podium. Would be my thoughts.
It would be the good. Well, to me, the right decision would be to pay more than the podium, right? That
Yes.
would make total sense to me. But yeah, not so sure.
The
But I guess
issue
we'll see pretty soon.
is like, all right, so like let's say they take 20% of the prize pool. This is I guess where I'm gonna come from with this, but it's so SR Monkey has said that it's just added to podiums. Is that posted anywhere, SR Monkey, or is that just what your interpretation of it is? Because I'm looking for it and I don't see it posted anywhere, but I could be incorrect on that in terms of it. So back to the discussion that we were just having about it. For me, like, all right, let's say you're breaking off $2,000 from All Star Rare Pro, and you're now giving that to Champion Europe Rare Pro. So you're basically just giving another ETH worth of rewards into Champion Europe Rare Pro. Is that really an impactful change in terms of what you're giving to that situation? Because
no,
for me, the issue with reallocation, and I'm going to change this later when we talk about the long form, because that's going to come up here as well. But if you're just reallocating it, you're just taking from one spot, giving it to another, and you already weren't getting that much in the All-Star Rare competitions as it was. So now all of a sudden you just have removed 20% and you're just moving that 20% elsewhere to another situation. Now it is helpful from it is spreading out the variance a bit and you're giving it to different situations. Yeah, and Nanzo brings it up. This is where I'm getting to with my point. He said there's no need to reallocate, just increase the ETH rewards in general for these different competitions, because that takes away a lot of the luster or the shine of it. Is that if you're just removing from one spot and giving to other, all of a sudden, like, let's say they do this with every region, right? Like, let's say all of a sudden now U23 is going to get 15% of global all-star prize pool, and then Challenger gets 10, and then America gets 5, 3, 2. All of a sudden, you've taken 50% from the All-Star region. That's not really that impactful. You just have changed things and made everything very diluted so that nobody's really winning anything of value from an ETH standpoint. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I would disagree with Nenzo saying that we need to increase ETH rewards. Well, I would not disagree, but I would ask, why does Nenzo say that it's way overdue first? Because I think that if you want to increase ETH rewards, you want to do it in a way that is sustainable for the platform, and that makes sense. I guess that I would agree with the fact that they should remove cards from the prize pool and add ETH, because I think that way you can probably sell more cards, and kind of like give a boost to some of your cards. And I would definitely change the cap divisions, which are slowly starting to feel like they're awful divisions and they're traps that no one should play into, except the cap 240 division, obviously. So yeah, I mean, I guess like my main problem with what they've done here is that All Star is still one of the biggest division out there, and that's my biggest concern, because it still doesn't make sense to have All Star divisions being like the king division on the platform, because it makes like, my love for Vanitsek and overpowered cards from that, like from players that no one know about. Like if you ask someone that watch football on a regular basis, and you say, who's Vanitsek, I say, I don't know who the f is Vanitsek, right? And so that's my main concern is not on the relocation. My main concern is on they affirming that All Star is their biggest division, and they want to keep going that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good segue into another discussion. So I am a big fan of the All-Star competition. To me, that is the marquee competition on the platform. Like, if you're winning All-Star, you are saying you beat everybody. No matter what your cards are, you have come to the top. I know that Bellama, for example, he thinks that like Champ Europe should be the top division on the platform. Like, that's the
Sure.
marquee division. That should be the top division. You also believe that, correct?
Yes.
So do you think they should get away from the all-star competitions in general and just turn those into cap mode competitions? Or do you think they should
Yes.
just move it down the list?
I think it should become PvE, so play against Sorare for all-star divisions, and not player versus player, or with a reduced price pool compared to now. And I think that um, I guess the why I'm saying that is, I don't think there's a situation where you can build a sustainable product where Vanitech costs more money than I don't know, like Arsenal players, most Arsenal players, for example. I don't think it makes sense, because I think most people are interested in getting like the best players in the world that are playing in the best teams in the world. So when you get a reward, you want to get like, I don't know, an Arsenal, Manchester City, PSG, Inter Milan a player. You don't want to get that uh, player you never heard about, and you probably won't even see him play on your television, because he does not play. No one buys the TV rights for this guy. And so to me, that's the main concern. But I agree with you saying that All Star is also a very attractive and beautiful division, because I enjoy playing All Star Pro. I enjoy playing All Star Air, because you can mix so many players from different leagues, and that's fun, etc. But I think it's you got to keep the fun, but reduce the amount of rewards you're giving to that division. And also, like I mean, they're paying, I don't know, like millions for the Premier League, right? So for the Premier League licensing rights, and basically with like not putting Champion Europe on top of your regions, you're basically saying, well, I'm paying tons of money for that licensing deal, but it's not really that important because my main division is All-Star, and I care about like Asian division, I care about American divisions, I care about like second Europe divisions and second division Europe divisions. And to me, that doesn't make much sense, and that it's not sustainable.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. Looking, I mean, you had a fourth place finish in All Star Rare Pro this week with you. You got to use some of your former nonce guys in Imran Luza and Yuan. So
Yeah.
it was a situation where you got to utilize these guys, and by doing this, you were able to say, I'm better than everyone except for 3 people in the All Star, no matter what cards you had. Like I was able to put together a better lineup than you. So Nanzo said, well, so we can talk about this. Nanzo says rewards should reflect the real world. Top leagues, top players should attract the best rewards. Well, then are we going to give America the best prize pool because they have the 2 best players in the world in Messi and Carlos Gil? Or are we going to do Champ Europe? Or are we going to do the Saudi League because the Saudi League all of a sudden is having more players? I think they can realistically do it whatever way they want. And part of me is like, people are interested in these other leagues. Like before Sorare, did you ever watch the Japanese league or the
No.
MLS?
No.
And by having this competition be the prominent competition, you are incentivizing people to expand their horizons a bit, which I understand some people may not want to do, but if they don't want to do it, they still have options. But by doing this, you have introduced people to a Nanzo. Nanzo has said Carlos Gil is not one of the best players in the world. I mean, Nanzo's not usually wrong, but I feel like this is definitely the worst take he's probably ever had, unfortunately. But it's a situation where I like the idea of the global game, right? Like the idea behind Sorare, this is the whole goal of Sorare and like what their marketing has been, what their brand has been for the years that it's been around, is to have it's the global game where you are including teams all across the world, players all across the world, all nationalities, etc. And then you're also including trying to get the top 20 leagues on the platform at all times. So to me, like the 2 brands and the 2 ways that they're trying to approach things is those 2 options. By doing that, Global All-Star to me makes the most sense because you're incorporating every single player in the world in one competition. And that competition is like the ultimate king of the platform for that given week
Sure.
as well. So like to me, I like it. I also understand where you're coming from with it because you want to have the Premier League, which is obviously where they're going to be doing most of their marketing. You want to have that as the premier situation, which like right now, like the Premier League, like if you look at it, Premier League cards are pretty trash as a whole, right? Like there's like 5 guys in the Premier League that you're like, yeah, these guys are elite level players comparatively to like other all-star competitions. Like you have Bruno, you have maybe some city guys like KDB, Haaland.
Yeah, Rodri also.
Yeah, and like you have and Trent Alexander-Arnold. And like after that, you get past that, you're just like, well, for the most part, the Premier League's pretty dumpy, and you just don't really want any guys from the Premier League in your key lineups. So I understand that as well. Do you think they're going to go from I know we're talking about things from a overall perspective and everything being included, and then we're talking about a regional. Do you think we're going to get down to a condensed league only type format at any point?
Do you mean like only Premier League divisions,
Yeah.
only Ligue 1 divisions?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would make some sense. I think like it's you have to. I try to have like a new user perspective, and I think it's very difficult like to get to know every single league that has been introduced to Sorare. Like you have to scout for the Belgian league, you have to scout for Eredivisie, you have to scout for, I don't know, Scotland Premiership. It's I think it's easier if you come from like if you're new to the game to start with with a well-known football league, like a top 5 Europe league, or at least your local league. And I think like it's so difficult to have to scout for so many players you don't know. And for us, it was kind of like a progressive work, because they added progressively like new leagues, and with new leagues, we've seen new best players, and we identified who were the best teams and the best players. But if you come like right now to the platform, it's kind of difficult to play All-Star Rare Pro efficiently, because you have to get you have to like scout a ton of players and a ton of full leagues. So
Yeah,
I
like
think
the best players are not in Champ Europe for
no,
Global All Star. Literally, like none of them.
like look at that line. I mean, it's like Lusa is playing in second division Europe, Yuan is playing in Scottish Premiership, and obviously, I mean, Newsham and Van are playing for Bruges. But yeah, to me, that is very beautiful that this lineup is getting to fourth place. Don't get me wrong, I like the idea, but the fact is, I want to win with that lineup, but I don't want to win Van Aken with that lineup.
Yeah, yeah. You want to win it, which is weird. You want to win the highest cards. You want to win the Mbappe's, the Neymars of the world, not the Vonnikins as well. So I totally get that. All right. Moving on to the next part of the discussion, second division Europe rewards. As part of our rebalance, they're going to be increasing the second division prize pools by approximately 20% compared to what the totals were at this point last season. I think that's fine, I guess. I guess I'm indifferent to it. Would you agree?
So what do you think like they're trying to achieve by doing that?
They're just trying to have people that are buying cards in that division have a chance to win cards. That's what I think they're trying to accomplish.
I think they're dumping on like they're trying to like reduce the price of cards from second division Europe.
Maybe I could see that.
I think that would make sense.
The prices are already pretty cheap though for second division cards.
Make it cheaper then.
Yeah, maybe. All right, next up, this one I think is a very interesting point. I'm a fan of it because I just think it gives us something different. Long format global all-star rewards. As announced in the July roadmap, we will balance existing all-star rewards across long format and short format prize pools. The long format competition will distribute more rewards than the short format, which I think that is incorrect. I think they actually mean that they're going to give away more rewards in the short format, not the long format. And top performers will be rewarded with epic prizes. The way they said it last time was that the long format would give away very few cards, but the cards they gave away would be really high-end cards. Like, so you might have the chance to win the best cards and you'll know it. So I think they just probably worded this incorrectly and posted it, which that wouldn't be shocking because it doesn't make sense as it is now. To do this, they're going to reduce 20% of the ETH and cash amount and card rewards from each game week in All-Star, and it will now be reallocated to our all-star long format prize pool. So that's pretty much what I anticipated they were going to do. So by reading this, they're effectively going to take away 20% of each game week. And then at the end, they're going to have a long format, which effectively, like, if you look at it like this, is like there's 8 game weeks a month that's going to be in the long format. That was at least what they said originally, right? There's going to be 8 game weeks. So if they reduce 20% from each of those 8 game weeks, then they effectively have another game week in the long format version. So like the long format version is going to be the equivalent of like 1.5 game weeks. That's what the prize pool is going to be. Is that sort of how you interpret that?
No.
How do you interpret it?
I interpret it as they're going to have like a month-long competition, and like they're taking 20% of each game week to get it to allocate it to the month-long competition.
Okay, I can see that. I think that the long form competition is at least an interesting addition. And these adjustments and the change is going to be the total number of cards will be changed effectively for things. So for me, I like the long format, not because I have a big advantage, which I do. like for sure, which we're going to talk about. But I think it's just a different way to do things that are interesting. Like having a bit of a longer competition is different. It's something that's not currently available on the platform. I mean, you obviously have the private leagues that are like that, but I think that it's at least interesting. So, what's your thoughts on them moving toward this long format and distributing some cards that way?
I will have no further comment on the long format because I don't know what they're going to do with it, and they could have like so many different formats they could choose from. That would be like, for example, you pick 5 players, and these are your 5 players for the whole competition. They could do like a month-long competition where you field a new lineup every game week. They could have like a pool of players you pick that you can't play in other divisions for that month, for example. So until I know what they're doing with the month-long format, I just won't comment on it.
That's fair. Based on what we know, is it seems like they're going to have it over 8 weeks at the beginning, and they're going to take your 4 best scores. So my interpretation currently is that they're going to use the 8 game week time frame. They will take your 4 best scores in whatever the competition is, which is going to be an global all star. So it will be like global all star rare. Your 4 best rare scores will be taken for this competition. But like you said, we do not have full details. I believe I saw earlier that it's going to be.
Yeah, Jump says it will be a leaderboard, not a new competition. Then if it's a leaderboard, I mean, that's fine, but it rewards consistency, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway from this is that it's going to really benefit people with big galleries, like huge benefit. Like there's is you're just key. You're not going to be able to realistically compete without a pretty significant leader or gallery most of the time, because if, like, for example, let's say they use this 8 game week as an example, okay?
Yeah.
And I will look at. I'm curious, like, what you did for this game week coming up, because I don't think you'll probably have that many cards for this. So you put up the 4th best score in Global All Star Pro. So you are, in theory, if it just started this weekend, you're at the top of the leaderboard, right? Like you're smashing it.
Yeah, and I'm going for the repeat, Sean. I'm going for it.
Okay, all right. So maybe your lineup's better than I was expecting. Yeah. So okay, so your lineup's pretty decent, right? But like hypothetically here, like, and this is a very realistic possibility. The Bruges game ends up getting reduced coverage.
No. Don't say that. Don't say that, John. No, I refuse. I thought about it and I was like, oh, come on. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So let's hypothetically say that happened and this happens. Well, if we look here, you don't really have other guys to use. So all of a sudden, like, your lead is just like this game week. So there's 8 game weeks. You just can't really even have a lineup that's valid this game week if this didn't exist. All of a sudden, your long-term leaderboard, you're kind of screwed, because next game week coming up, it's going to be really difficult. Whereas, like, if I look at mine, so for example, we'll look at my lineup for this game week. So like I finished 60th on the weekend. It wasn't a great result, but I finished 60th, which is okay, right? Well, then though, for this game week, I am able to run out this lineup that's
It sucks.
pretty good. To be fair, yours is actually probably better, because the Bruges matchup is the best matchup of the week, I think.
Yeah.
Until you get downgraded coverage. But anyways, so like I most likely would, and if I didn't have this lineup, right, I would have been able to pull in this lineup. Right.
So you didn't play Vanaken in All-Star Pro because Vanaken Super Rare because you were afraid of the downgrade?
No. So what happened is this stack made the most sense to me, because I only had like Vanaken and Skov Olsen. So this stack, I actually shockingly prioritized Division 2 for this game week, because my Division 2 lineup is very, very good. So I was like, I looked at it and I was like, well, I could, because I was going to run Vanaken here and I was going to play him here, but I was like, I have the stack. If I don't run the stack here, I'm going to move it to Challenger. I think it's too good Challenger. And I looked and I'm like, well, this is really good, I think. So I was like, I'm just going to use D2 as like one of my priority spots. And if I did that, I would still be able to stack well, and like still am able to run this. And again, like I had mostly PSV stack going here. So I just said I'm going to run this as a stack. And that's kind of why Vonnekin got displaced, because it just made sense elsewhere. And I wanted to keep him with Skov Olsen, and the best way to do that was like here. So it was a weird thing. But anyways, back to the point of the long format is, if we're running a long format and we have 8 game weeks, I probably get 8 game weeks to put up 4 high scores. You might get like 5 or 6, and other people might get like 4, because your gallery is a lot bigger than 99.7% of people on the platform. So like, if I go to a lot of other people, I guarantee they're not going to have a lineup that's anywhere near as good as what yours is.
Yes, I agree, and that's why I think like some kind of like roster lock, like you pick like, I don't know, 20 to 25 cards, and you say I'm able to play those cards and those cards only during the competition, kind of makes sense in terms of like protecting like a whale domination.
I also think only running it on weekends makes a lot more sense.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that, because at least like having like a game limit, like having like, I don't know, at least like a number of games to like make sure that the division is eligible for the leaderboard. Because if you have like 5 games during the game week, obviously that's a problem. Roster lock could get messy, says Charlie, and I agree with that. That's probably difficult to do, but at least like have some kind of like protection against like, big Gary's getting too big of an edge.
Yeah, well, I mean, you actually are a pretty good proponent for this from the old leagues that were at SorareData, right? Like, if there weren't enough games and it didn't qualify, it wasn't counted. So like, a good example, like, I don't know the week in which it happens, but at some point in September, I'm going to say like here, it's an international break. So all of a sudden, like, if you do not have like Mbappe playing Liechtenstein, you're just not.
Well, I think France, who's playing Gibraltar, because I think like you want to have the player. I'm not sure France is playing Gibraltar. They might be. Wait.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out when the international break
No,
is.
France is playing the Netherlands, which is pretty much the same.
I thought you were going to say it's the same as Gibraltar.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. We
Um,
won 4-0 last time up, so I mean,
so
it's
if I go to game week
405.
406, so 405. So if I'm on game week 405, yeah, so like, we're talking international window. And if you don't have, like, I mean, I'm just going to look at this from a perspective of this. Like, I have Lionel Messi at home against Ecuador. Like, that's a great matchup. I have like Dusan Tadic against Lithuania. Like, if you don't have these high-end cards against some of these teams, like, you have Brazil at home against Bolivia. Like, you have Doku against Azerbaijan. So that means like Kevin De Bruyne has Azerbaijan. So if you don't have like these elite level matchups, you're going to be in a world of hurt in this game week, because you just, like, if you don't have a lot of international cards, you're just not going to be able to compete. So like, let's say they start this competition in game week 403, which I actually think that's when they were starting, was game week 403, right? So game week 403 is a normal game week. Like, I have all these cards. Like, I'm going to have lots of cards. Most people will. 2 weeks down the road, you have 2 to 3 weeks worth of international competitions, because you have a midweek, midweek. So 3 of the 8 weekends are going to be international competitions, where like, if you do not have Messi, Neymar, Mbappe type cards, you might not even have cards to run out. Like, I know in the past, even with my big gallery, like, I would have international games week, and I would just look, and I'm just like, wow, my lineups are just non-existent. Like, before Mignon won the French job, my best goalie during like these international competitions was like Hradecki. That was like my top marquee goalie during international competition. Well, I'm running out Hradecki while other people are running out Courtois against Gibraltar. Well, it's hard to compete in those situations. So I think that I think the long-term competition is a good idea. I just am concerned a bit about how they are going to produce it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's not that easy, but I think like the best possible way to do it is to have divisions, and by divisions I mean level divisions, and have some kind of matchmaking, and so that everyone kind of enjoys their competition, and you don't have to play against PSU fans too in the same leaderboard as you with a small rare gallery. And I think that Nenzo said, I think the idea is to encourage people to keep big galleries, and I agree with that. But I mean, it's a if you don't have a shot at winning anything, you probably won't buy any cards because you will feel tired to lose against the same Sean Newsham every single month, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if you in theory, like if they do what it seems like they're doing, and they run global all-star competitions for an 8-week game week period, right? I'm going to be at the top of leaderboards almost every time if there's no like restrictions or path around it. Just because of pure volume of cards and the way that I prioritize lineups. Like those are always my best lineups with like very minimal DNP risk typically.
Well, we could do the exercise in like figure out if you would actually be on top of like the April May leaderboard if we had those rules in place. Um, I'm sure people will try harder in those divisions if there is a global or a monthly leaderboard for those. So I'm not sure you will be on top of those leaderboards every time. But it depends on the number of places that are paid. And
Yeah.
again, I feel like you should be placed in a leaderboard where the people that are playing with you or against you have like a similar like gallery level than yourself. And like I don't get why most of the people should play against you
Yeah, no,
or
I agree
against
with
me.
that. Yes. Well, actually, I think what a good option would be is how you again did things with the SorareData leagues, where you had like six or you might have had more than six. It might have been like 10 different leagues, and as you went, you progressed upwards in the leagues
Yep.
to higher leagues. Those prizes were a lot better the higher you went. But like I right before you got rid of it, I got to like the top level. I think I got to the top league like the month before you decided to discontinue it, and the people that were in that were like YNWA. It was AJ. It was Zura at the time. Like it was those were the users. Now, granted, I had to compete against them, and my gallery doesn't compare to theirs, but those were the people I was competing against. However, if I was able to do well and win and succeed, my rewards at the end of the tunnel were a lot higher. Whereas, like, let's say eventually I got there, but at the beginning I was down in like League 7, and I was playing against people that had significantly smaller galleries. And at the time, maybe I even had a significantly smaller gallery because I started when I first came on. So I think they could use those leaderboards to tier things as it progresses and have
Yeah.
a situation where the higher you go, the better the rewards, but the
Yes.
more fierce competition. And if you are a limited player that is only really focusing on limited and you're at the bottom and you're going to play for rewards, but they're going to be obviously significantly less. I think that could be a good way to do it.
Yeah, but if you're on the top of your leaderboard, you're going to progress to the next one,
Yeah.
and then get more rewards and stuff like that. And that also gives you a way to progress in the game, and you don't necessarily have to buy the best cards, but you have to buy the cards that get you at the top of your leaderboard. And if you're at the like lowest division, you probably don't need Mbappe to win, but you probably need like some solid starters that like consistently deliver like 50s or 60s. Well, let's say 50s and sometimes 60s. um and you can progress that way. I think it's much better to see it that way and to just add a new leaderboard that is going to be like won by the same people all over again.
Yeah. And I also think it will be a interesting competition because if they run it for each scarcity, things will be even more unique as they go. And maybe in the super rare and unique scarcities, like you don't have tiers, right? It's just that group. But maybe the Rare Pro, the Rare, the Limiteds would get tiered better. Jose mentioned that the Sorare competitions were the best. I agree with that. I think the way that the Sorare competitions were set up were very, very solid. They were done really well. And it's unfortunate Maxime threw them out the wayside. But I think the things that are done now, and I know this was obviously the intention, are way more impactful for the platform. The lineup projections are very helpful for all users on the platform instead of similar players winning things frequently. So I tend to agree with most things around that. And I'll be interested to see how they make this function, because it's really like at this point we really have no idea. And that's something that we've talked about on my show with Laird. I'm sure you guys have talked about, but the announcements of an announcement are very frustrating sometimes, where you just look at it and you're like, well, I literally cannot comment on this. But and we see people, obviously, every time it happens, people lose their mind because they just like come up with their own iteration of what it's going to be.
Yes.
And that it's literally not even close to that, but that's what they have in their mind. And then everyone takes it as like fact. That's what it's going to be. So I wish they would not release stuff. Like, for example, you could just announce and be like, hey guys, long form's coming. We're working on it. We'll let you know, instead of what they did like 2 weeks ago. We're like, we're going to have long form. It's going to be over 8 weeks. You're going to take your best 4 scores, but we don't know if they're going to be tiered. We don't know if they're going to be broken down. We don't know if they include weeks. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that probably means that's it. It's going to be 8 game weeks, and we get the 4 best scores, and that's it. And I think that they do the 4 best scores, so they think that it's actually an anti-whale measure to do that, an anti-whale rule to do that, so that you can actually get a shot at playing the 4 weekend game weeks and actually get a decent score at the 4 times. But the problem is still the same. You don't want to compete against like great galleries such as like R1, also like SR1 as like I don't want to compete against him. It's and there was something that was brought by Joe on the chat that is pretty interesting. It's like how do you determine like gallery level? Like, do you use like the budget that was used for for buying the gallery? Do you use like the number of cards? Do you use something else? And to me, it's just past performance, past SO5 performances. It's like we take your last 4 All-Star Rare Pro weekend performances. We give you a heads up and say, we're going to take. So if you want to prioritize All-Star Rare Pro, it's the time, because we're going to like record those performances, and we're going to say, based on those performances, I think you are ranked here in the top like 10% or in the top 50%, and then you're going to go into the like platinum division or in the gold division, and then and that's where it's a game. It's actually where how all games function today, like League of Legends, Valorant, etc. It's like you're placed in silver and you have to make your way through all the divisions until Valorant, Immortal, and stuff like that. And same thing with League of Legends. And it's like, to me, it's such the best way to actually play Sorare that I don't get why we're still not there yet.
Yeah, it feels like something that could have been implemented a while ago. Joe asks why long form is only in the All-Star and not the regions. I think this is always going to be a situation where All-Star is like the test region, where they're going to see how it progresses and then determine whether or not they want to expand it elsewhere. So I think that's sort of how they're going to go about things with that. I don't think it's going to be a situation. So speaking of video games, Maxime, we have very different tastes in video games, because you're a big Val fan, aren't you?
No.
You like CSGO.
It's CSGO and League of Legends, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a big Fortnite guy. I like Fortnite a lot as well. So yeah, I think that they're moving in directions that could be interesting. I think that things could be interesting. That's the end of the announcement. There's nothing else with it. So I'm curious how things are going to go in regards to the long form. I think that it's an interesting thing. I also think that they're going to be planning to move ETH elsewhere and redistribute or reallocate longer term. Do you think they're going to reallocate more of All-Star competitions to other regions, or do you think they're going to add more ETH?
So my theory is they're starting to prioritize, and my theory would be they're going to make Champion Europe the best division out there. Okay, and so if you do that, you have to create a hierarchy of regions, right? And you're starting slowly to say we're implementing a hierarchy, and they're saying like pretty clearly 1 to 7, and they're starting to say All Star is the best like region, right? But they say that, but also they reallocate some of the All Star prize pool to Champion Europe, right? So they're basically saying, well, today All Star is the best, but we're reallocating to Champion Europe, so to rebalance stuff, right? So to me, they are slowly starting to like do what I've been waiting for like the past years is make Champion Europe great again. And and I think that's the way to go. And but you can't do that like in a week. You can't say like, oh, now your Challenger Europe cards are worthless because like the prize pool in those divisions has been reduced like significantly, and you can't like do that also for All Star. And I think they're going to monitor the market and see if it has an effect on the Vanitsek, the overpowered second division Europe, but also Asia and America cards that are widely played in All Star divisions and not in the original divisions.
Yeah, actually, looking at Marvin, because I was curious where he went. What do you think the price point on Marvin has gone from, percentage wise, from the end of, let's say, the European season, so end of May to now? What do you think the graph
I'd
has
say,
gone?
I'd say plus 10%.
Okay, plus 10%. So we're gonna. I'm gonna pick like the middle of May, like May 15th.
Yeah.
So here is the Marvin limited graph from. So at one point it got to about double what it was from a end of the season situation. Like we're calling like this range end of season, but now it's sort of stabilized a little bit, and it's probably about 25%, 20, 25%.
Yeah.
So no, I agree. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where we get to with guys like that. And like even during the sort of like situation where we went off and crashed a bit for a while, if you look at like a guy like Gil who maybe was less impactful than other people during that window. Like Gil has gone down since then, but that's because that's how it typically goes. Is like as the season goes on, that they fall apart. I still say to this day, the best time to buy cards for any competition is like midway through the season, where that's like the floor price, and you get like a half a season of utility out of them.
Yeah, I bought a new Almada card because so Atlanta has been eliminated from the Leagues Cup, so no one is trying to play Almada like for the next 3 or 4 game weeks. But he's such a great player. It's on the rare. I bought a rare card of him, and it's like he's on a 1 year all-time low, I think.
Yeah,
and it's probably like players from teams eliminated from the Leagues Cup. That's probably the best time to actually buy those cards.
Yeah. Like, I mean, because also like the nice thing with the MLS with this card is he can't really go to Europe anymore. Like he's there through the end of the season because like they can't really get anyone in at this point. So I think their window out, like they can still sell players, but like realistically, it's hard for them to sell him and replace him.
Yeah, I think like he can move until like August 31st, but I think that like if he had to move, he probably would have moved already. So
correct, because
let's see.
If for like the high end cards in America, like if, for example, we'll give the Crew as an example, right? Like Zayla left, went to Saudi Arabia. They brought in Rossi. Like if you're going to lose a player like this in the MLS, you typically have to have a replacement set up.
Yeah, exactly. And also Almada, even if I think even if he goes to Europe, I think he's a solid starter. He is a sub in Argentina's international squad. He's U23 for 2 years. I mean, it was a no-brainer. I watched him play the last game against Cruz Azul, and I was like, I want a second card of this guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at him, like, no one really compares with him U23 wise. Like, he's very, very top end. And you look, like, so we just talked about it, right? Like, this is a good time to buy it. If you look at a season, so these 4 games are in the MLS, so you have at least 4 games. You have another 5 here. Then you go back on an international break. Then you have another 2 here. So
And playoffs.
no matter what, you're getting like another 11 games of U23 eligibility out of this card.
And like, if you look at similar players, it's very interesting to see who's similar to Almada, and you see like very good players. Alvarado, it's obviously a very hot card right now, Alvarado, but Verman is also very interesting. But you're paying like a start of the season Verman right now, and that's not cheap, and that's pretty expensive. And Verman is not U23 anymore, so it's probably comparable to Ugarte or Baturina. But
Probably
there are like,
Baturina is the best, I would say.
yeah. But Baturina is way more expensive than him because start of the season Baturina.
Yeah, I mean, similar, like Ricky Puig. Sorry, Ricky Puig. Sorry, Ricky. If Gator Guy's here, he'd be Puig. He was literally walking around DC by the week all weekend, just yelling Puig at everyone. So like, like Ricky Puig. Like, you look at him and you look at his scorer line. Like, his score line's been unbelievable. Obviously, he has a pedigree, and the worry is he goes back here. But that's all these guys' pedigree, right? Like, we were sitting here looking at Ivan Usic for a while, and it was like, he's going to go to Burnley. And you're like, I don't want that. And you look at, like, these other guys, and you're like, oh, I don't really like them. Ugarte, although Ugarte does seem pretty locked in at this point. But, yeah, like, you talk about Veerman and his price being quite high. So if we go look at Veerman here, he's not – and to be fair, I actually still like Veerman as a card, and I think he's a great card to have. But Veerman's at like 0.5 ETH, and he's about 60% more than what Almada is without U23 eligibility. And realistically, like, if I look at him, like, this is very similar cards.
Yeah, and probably less 100 and probably less decisive than. Well, he's doing a lot of assists, but not a lot of goals. And Almada is like a playmaker at Atlanta. He's going to play every game. But also, like, what's interesting with Verman that they're playing against Sturm Graz, and I guess they have another round of UACL qualifying. That means midweek utility.
So I believe I spent like an entire day, like a month ago, figuring out everyone's Europe qualifications. I believe. Let me pull up my spreadsheet that I have here. I believe that they have actually, no, they do not. They do. So yeah, if they win this, they go to the playoff round.
Okay.
If they lose the playoff round, they go to the Europa League group stage. If they lose this, they go to the Europa League group stage, I believe.
So you want PSV to win those games, and they're heavily favorite against Sturm Graz, obviously, and so I guess that's very interesting to
actually. Here's like a weird note for you, and it was a couple teams. So Genk, which obviously they lost. So Genk started in the second qualifying round of the Champions League. If they won, they played another qualifier where if they won that, they were guaranteed Champions League. If they lost that, they went to the Europa League. Because they lost, they now move to the Europa League qualifiers. If they win that, they're guaranteed at least the Europa League or at least the Conference League group stage. If they win that, if they lose, they then move to another situation. So like a team like Genk had a possibility to play 8 games in the qualifiers where they had to lose all 3 of the first 3 to not get a chance. So basically it was like you would lose the first one, you go down, lose the first one, you go down, lose that one, you're out, win that one, you go to another game, lose that, you're out. So like they were guaranteed 6 games with a possibility of 8, and they had to lose all 3 of the early games to be eliminated from everything.
Yeah, that's exactly why I bought Van der Vaart at the start of the season, because I
Yeah.
was like, they could play a ton of midweek games, and I was like rooting for Servette to win because I knew that Genk is going probably to have a okay matchup, and I want them to play in Europa League or in Conference League
Yes.
because these games are going to be so much easier than in Champions
Yes.
League.
So
And
actually, the
so,
funny thing is, I actually think Genk's road is
yeah,
harder as they go down. Servette was the worst opponent they're going to play because now they have Olympiacos, who I think is above Servette. And then if they lose that, they could run into like Brighton and like Lille and teams like that are surely better teams. So it's actually funny. Like the most winnable path for Genk was that first time against Servette that they squandered the shit out of.
yeah, but I think they lost on purpose against Servette.
Yeah, I mean, it's much better for the league if they are in the Europa League or the Conference League. Like for the league, you get similar coefficient points in the Conference and Europa League as you do in Champions League, except for like, could you imagine Genk in the champ? And I love Genk, you know, I'm a Genk homer, but the reason I love Genk is because their games are so exciting to watch because they
Yeah.
defend so shit and they attack all game. If they're in the Champions League against Manchester City, they're gonna give up like 15 goals. So like
Yeah.
it would have been awesome.
No,
Like Genk was going to lose all 6 games in the Champions League
yes,
by
that's for
like a
sure.
shitload, probably.
But obviously they didn't like intentionally throw the game. But
Yes.
I think like like a part of their brains was saying like, he don't want to play in Champions League anyway. Europa League is fine. I mean, we get a much better shot at, and also if you play Europa League, you're probably going to end up second or third of your group, and you're going to advance to another round.
Yes.
But if you play in Champions League, you're probably going to end up fourth in your group and end up with nothing.
Yes.
So I mean, I was very happy to see Servette win that game.
Yeah, I will be happy if they beat Olympiacos. If they beat Olympiacos, that is
Yeah,
ideal because if they beat Olympiacos, they have to play another game where if they win, they're in Europa League group stage. If they lose, they're in Conference League group stage. If they lose this game against Olympiacos, they're still possibly miss everything, which I don't want.
I mean, Olympiacos roster is, well, it's not good.
What?
It's
Oh,
like Olympiacos players are not good. Like, I mean,
who did I don't
it's
even know who they used to be really good.
it's not good.
All
Yeah,
right.
so not played Olympiacos in Europa League group stage last year, and they weren't good.
Yeah, this is a lot worse of a lineup than they used to have. They used to be a
Yeah, no,
lot
it's
better. They have Pierre Kunde. He's decent. Yeah,
yeah.
So Gank. I think actually I should check. I don't even know what the situation here is for this because obviously it wasn't on. But I believe this game is the away leg for them in this situation. And let's see what the line is. Gank is a small underdog away. So Gank is pretty much in the same spot they were against Servette, where they are the better team by a little bit of a margin. Like they definitely probably are like 70% to advance, I would imagine, before it starts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's see how that goes, but
Yeah.
that's pretty fun. A fun way to start the season, though.
Yeah. I mean, they have so the issue. I was sitting there bitching about this the other week is literally the most like great matchups that they have all year in the league were the first couple weeks of the season. Gank's opening stretch in league was so cushy, but then you just sit there and last weekend they rotated like 10 guys. And it's just like, oh man, because you know it's possibly coming because they could play 8 games in the midweek and 8 games on the weekend. Like they could play 16 straight game weeks. You can't play the guys every single game week. You have to rotate. So
And there's like, maybe not this game, but there's like a very serious case of that happening for Bruges.
yes.
In the second leg against like I don't remember the name of the team
Well,
they're playing.
I
But,
actually was a bit surprised Bruges did not rotate in their second leg
yeah,
against against whoever it was. Like, what was it? I was surprised in this game the Bruges didn't rotate.
Yeah.
But
but they didn't really play, right? Like,
correct. I will tell you where there is definitely going to be possibilities for Bruges to rotate. And that is the Eupen game and the Molenbeek game. Like,
well, yeah, but like, and it's very interesting in terms of Sorare because like Opta is going to be covering the 396 game against KA, but they won't be covering the return game
correct.
because it's away, and I guess like they don't have the feeds. So
correct. But it happened to Genk. It happened to Genk today. Genk is for sure going to run their strongest lineup this midweek, and then on the weekend, I don't know. And the weekend is not going to be covered, or the weekend's covered obviously, whereas the midweek's not. So yeah, Bruges. You could be in a situation where Bruges rotates here against Eupen, and then next midweek where it's not covered in 398, they run their strongest lineup, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, talking about Opta, I mean, it's like we can end up on that point, but like it's such a mess. It's so it's on the Servette against no, what game was that? The Bruges game that was downgraded during the game week. They basically said, since we had no special request to cover the game, we downgraded it. And it's so mind-boggling to me to actually like say that, like, you have people paying for coverage at a certain level, but you still have to send a special request to Opta to cover a game. I mean, I think like it was kind of misworded, and they probably like wanted to say something else than what a special request like would imply from my perspective. But I was like, it's such a bad look, and I can't. Well, I'm just going to stop there because I'm going to put the Mourinho gif here.
Well, you have to factor in this situation, right?
It's crazy, yeah.
Like if I look at this, and obviously, like, let's hypothetically say that Galatasaray in the reverse fixture against Olympiaja is showing, right? I try to lump guys in those games together in the event that it gets downgraded, because you have to factor it in. If you don't factor in the potential for a downgrade in a situation, I think that it's probably a mistake, something that you could end up regretting. Because like this game, the AZ game, this game could totally just not have coverage at this level because it wasn't there originally. Any game that like wasn't there originally, I'm very hesitant and worrisome that it gets covered. Same thing with this Omnia Nicosia game versus Midtjylland. If this game doesn't get covered for whatever reason or gets downgraded, like I could see it. So like that's why like I tried to lump guys in these type of games together if I can. It just isn't always possible to do so.
Yeah, I don't know. I the Andorre game like against Alkmaar is probably played in a Spanish stadium or a French stadium, and so that's why I think it's covered.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's also poor FC20 after missing out last year because they drew Fiorentina. They draw, I think, Fenerbahce. They draw the winner of this competition, so like that's not great. I would not want to draw Fenerbahce.
No, but I mean, it's such like such a problem that we can't have like good coverage, good reliable coverage on like stats, and of like someone telling you that, oh, but the game has been downgraded like 2 days before it actually happens, and it's just like. But I guess it all depends on what media requests are, and I think Opta does not really care about their non-media clients.
I agree with that. So, all right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us today. I think this is the last show I'll be on this week.
Yes, Sean. Let me do my promotion. I will be doing an off-topic with Maxime on Friday, and so I would be replacing Laird and having some of the worst takes available, and you can watch that on Friday. I think it's going to be like 5 p.m. CET or 4 p.m. CET. I don't know.
There you go.
But it's going to be fun.
There you go, guys. If you want to see Maxime by himself run a solo show, be there on Friday. I'm sure he'll need some assistance in the chat, so make sure you guys are there for him. I think Laird had some shows he may be pre-recorded as well that are coming out the next couple of days. So there will still be content. Just because Laird is not here does not mean that he left you guys high and dry with content. So for Maxime, I am Sean. Good luck to you guys this week. We'll see you guys later.